Welcome back to Black Bear News, coming at you with video number 2 tonight. And I don't know, wanted to quickly just voice some paranoia over my videos. I think that YouTube is kind of mildly messing with me. They were knocking a lot of subscribers off my channel for a while. Now that doesn't seem to be happening so much, but now I've noticed that my views seem to stay suppressed for a while, and then they'll jump up to like the normal number like 2 or 3 days after I put the video out. So I think I'm getting the normal viewership, but they're just like not counting the video views, and so it looks like there's like lower views for a while, and I'm just like, you know, whatever, it doesn't really matter, but it's just odd. I notice it, even though I'm getting the same amount of commentary, you know, more comments than ever. So that's what's funny is I'm getting more comments than ever, and but less views. I don't know how that reconciles, but whatever. Just wanted to point that out, and they're messing with me, man. The man is trying to take me down. So I'm going to read this quickly from HuffPost. Up to 145 pilot whales dead after mass stranding on New Zealand beach. As many as 145 pilot whales have died after becoming stranded on a remote beach in New Zealand on Saturday evening. A hiker at Mason Bay on the remote Stewart Island discovered the 2 pods of the whales, which were located approximately a mile from each other. Roughly half of the whales were already dead by the time they were found, leaving officials from the New Zealand Department of Conservation with the heartbreaking decision to euthanize the remainder. Whoa. Sadly, the likelihood of being able to successfully refloat the remaining whales was extremely low, said Ren Leppens, the department operations manager. A good name, Ren Leppens. The remote location, lack of nearby personnel, and the whales' deteriorating condition meant that the most humane thing to do was euthanize. The stranding of marine mammals is a relatively common phenomenon on New Zealand's shores, according to a statement from the DOC. Indeed, a number of whales, including 10 pygmy killer whales, 2 of which have died, became stranded on the country's shores over the weekend. 2 sperm whales, including 1 female pygmy, also died over the weekend in separate incidents. As previously reported by HuffPost, nearly 700 whales washed up on the South Island's Farewell Spit in 2017, and what became the 3rd largest whale stranding since record keeping began. Okay, I'm going to link this below. Very sad indeed. Whales are having more and more problems. Good Lordy, there's just so much to cover, but I'm going to go going to cover this from Darja Mail, the latest from Darja Mail. This is from today. And he talks about the title is California Wildfire, Likely Spread Nuclear Contamination from Toxic Site, and we covered this last week. The incredibly destructive Woolsey fire in Southern California has burned nearly 100,000 acres in Los Angeles and Ventura counties, killed 3 people, destroyed more than 400 structures, and at the time of this writing was finally nearly completely contained. The fire may have also released large amounts of radiation and toxins into the air after burning through a former rocket engine testing site where a partial nuclear meltdown took place nearly 6 decades ago. The Woolsey fire has most likely released and spread radiological and chemical contamination that was in the Santa Susana Field Laboratory soil and vegetation via smoke and ash. Dr. Bob Dodge, president of Physicians for Social Responsibility Los Angeles, told Truth Out. The fire has been widely reported to have started near the Santa Susana Field Laboratory site, but according to PSR LA, it appears to have started at the site itself. That's all I'm going to read of this. I read this yesterday, and so this is just a recap of it. I'm not going to recap it again. I will link this below. And one moment. So I'm going to quickly go back to politics. Most of y'all have heard of the migrant caravan south of the Mexican border. The U.S. has deployed tear gas on the migrant caravan. If y'all haven't heard about this, it's happening. We are now using tactics of, like, you know, other fascist states such as Israel, and just doing whatever it is that we feel like we're allowed to do to people that are in need of comfort and help and probably food. Anyways, I'm just going to quickly dip into this. I'm not going to stay very long. President Donald Trump is strongly defending the U.S. use of tear gas at the Mexican border to repel a crowd of migrants that included angry rock throwers, but also barefoot crying children. Critics denounced the border agents' actions as overkill, but Trump kept a hard line. They were being rushed by some very tough people, and they used tear gas. Trump said Monday of the previous day's encounter, "Here's the bottom line. Nobody's coming into our country unless they come in legally." Without offering evidence, he also claimed that some of the women are not really parents, but are instead grabbers who steal children so they have a better chance of getting granted asylum in the U.S. Just insane situation. I'm going to link this below. And there's also, you know, misinformation from, obviously, you know, the Republicans have turned this into a big old America. We have to defend our border. Without really looking at the causes of the migrant caravan, without, you know, they're trying to criminalize. They've been criminalizing this caravan through propaganda. And I see it all over the place, and it's happening also on the right-wing alternative news channels, as well as the old standby white supremacy network. Oh, I meant Fox News. So I'm going to read this article from Truth Out. Oh, not that article. This article. Climate change should make the Republican Party impossible. Should being the operative word. This is by Nicholas Powers from November 21st. I watched Puerto Rican relief workers pull a shopping cart on ropes across a riverbed after Hurricane Maria destroyed the bridge. The food it carried kept families trapped on the hillside from starving. It was 2017. I drove along the island, shocked at the battered buildings and telephone wires spilled on the street, and thought, we'll need tons of money to rebuild. As I flew back home, Texas was just recovering from Hurricane Harvey. A year later, California wildfires burned neighborhoods to ash. Then Hurricane Michael smashed homes in Florida. Now, more fires on the West Coast have caused 250,000 people to flee, and hundreds are missing. Each new disaster adds to a growing crisis. Our nation's survival means a new role for its citizens and a larger one for the federal government. Climate change demands changes that conflict with Republican and even Democratic dogma. Ding, ding, ding. Ultimately, the nation's survival may mean the GOP is impossible. Big government will be necessary. Yes, thank you. It will be necessary. They're going to have to step in, and they're going to have to control things because we can't control ourselves. And the old, you know, shop till you drop Republican platform is just not happening anymore. Sorry, people. Populist solidarity will be too. The poor and the working class, long divided by Republicans, may be forced by their shared vulnerability to climate change into a new coalition. Let's hope. Let's hope somebody out there starts forming entities such as Extinction Rebellion, or mimicking or mirroring those movements. The end is here. In 2012, Hurricane Sandy scraped New York City like a giant Brillo pad. After it left, we walked outside and saw broken trees and looked up and saw rooftops peeled and flapping. The phrase climate change had a new heaviness in our mouths. Our amazement came from seeing it. Climate change is imperceptible until a narrative or an event makes it visible. It's hard to see the carbon spewing from our cars and planes. It's hard to see the methane seeping out of landfills or natural gas operations. However, even when it's transparent, the air we breathe is already thick with too much carbon. Carbon levels are the highest they've been in 800,000 years. Our nation of 326 million is the second largest emitter of greenhouse gases behind China. For decades, we vied for number one with the European Union. It means that in every breath of air we take, we inhale unseen our climate debt and exhale a future of disaster. Now, experience is teaching Americans that the end is here. Winters are eerily warm. Hurricanes smash coastal cities, and wildfires and droughts crack the land. Planes struggle to take off in the thin, hot air. Flights are rocked by more turbulence. In the west, the Rio Grande River dries to a muddy trickle. The Colorado River had a severe drought, too. Farmers stand in dry dirt fields and agonize over their crops. The forecast for the next century is grim. Reports from Harvard and the National Climate Assessment describe a future that's a Hollywood disaster film. Boiling heat waves kill the poor and the old. Hot days and bright sun react with exhaust to create smog. In the Midwest, huge storms flood the land and devastate crops. Western wildfires incinerate homes as smoke fills people's lungs with soot. Insects, soil erosion, and water stress upset agriculture and leave store shelves empty. Ticks and mosquitoes carry new diseases into a warmer northeast. Panic increases as the speed of climate change piles up on everyday life. All tomorrow's parties. Before Donald Trump was president, he tweeted that climate change was a Chinese hoax. Recently, he acknowledged, okay, maybe it wasn't a hoax, but who knows if it's human-made, and maybe it will go back. Vice President Pence said the same thing. Republicans faithfully parrot the fossil fuel companies that fund them. These include Koch Industries, Chevron Corporation, and Marathon Petroleum Corporation. They include the mining companies or electric utilities. The brown energy industry pays for denialist research and funds the campaigns of whoever walks the party line. They also fund a bunch of alternative YouTube channels, such as Frawley and all those other, they move on, they move from excuse to excuse, or, they go from the Maunder minimum to, I don't know, new ice age to, climate is always changing. And now the new one that it's going around is, but it used to be, CO2 levels used to be 2,700 way back then, but yeah, no, that's not happening, guys. Sorry. Climate change denial is part of an overall ideology to justify the profiteering of big oil. Denialism may start to reach the end of its political usefulness as climate change increasingly upends our lives. While the recent storms in Texas and Florida failed to make climate change a major election issue this year, evidence is building the piling up of disasters may shift voters' opinions. I always thought climate change was a bunch of nonsense, Margie White, a Trump supporter, told the Washington Post. Now I really do think it's happening. Thanks, Margie. Thanks for climbing aboard the climate change train. Let's go. Hurricane Florence hurled a tree like a spear into a rooftop. Her neighbors are beginning to talk of global warming. They are the canary in the coal mine of future conservatism. A deep chasm separates all U.S. politicians, but most starkly the Republican Party, from the recommendations of climate scientists. Democrats are closer, but their business-friendly regulations fall short of what's needed. That is very true. Even so, reality might force a day of reckoning for the Republican Party. Actually, we need a brand new party. We need a brand new party that is willing to completely sidestep the oligarchy. They need to not take donations. They need to not take, any money from lobbyists or PACs, and they need to get into office, and then they need to start changing the shit out of our entire political and economic landscape. The science is overwhelming. Millennials are panicked about their future. Corporate America beyond the fossil fuel industry is signaling it wants change. Who cares about corporate America? Goodbye. They need to go away. Voters like White see the writing on the wall. If so, the political center may shift and the Republican voters may be forced to re-examine their knee-jerk fear of state-led efforts to regulate corporations and mitigate climate change. Let's read that again. If so, the political center may shift and Republican voters may be forced to re-examine their knee-jerk fear of state-led efforts to regulate corporations and mitigate climate change. Oh my God, they're going to tax us because climate change. Yeah, your ass is going to get taxed by much, much more. You're going to be taxed by starvation if you don't get your minds right. Doom and bloom. I was in a tizzy after reading the new report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. We have 12 years to reduce carbon emissions by half, or climate change will make Earth a hot mess. It's not doom and gloom, my friend Matt Eshed told me. It can be doom and bloom. He talked about carbon sequestration technology that pulls carbon from the air and transforms it into building material. He told me about resilient cities with spongy parks to soak up storm water. He helped me imagine solar panels on buildings. The longer we spoke, the more I relaxed. Don't relax just yet. He could see a future. I could too. But after we hung up, I thought about Republican rhetoric on climate change and an expanded role for government. At the core is racist fear. Conservative working class voters have been told for so long that big government will benefit minorities or immigrants. It's why in poll after poll they have recoiled against welfare or immigration reform. It is why just before the midterms Trump yelled, if Democrats get control, they will raise your taxes, flood your streets with criminal aliens, weaken our military, outlaw private health insurance, and replace freedom with socialism. Please, please replace freedom with socialism. Give me some good old time socialism. Yet the parts of the federal government that are needed to manage climate change overlap with what Trump voters want. We need a larger Medicare and Medi-Cal system to treat people sickened, Medicaid system to treat people sickened by new diseases, smog or smoke from fires. We need Social Security to aid those disabled or left poor by climate change beyond those programs. And we need a large EPA to draw down the fossil fuel industry, and FEMA to rescue those struck by oncoming storms. We need the White House to organize state-level policies into a cohesive whole. We need to tax the rich, especially billionaires whose lifestyles spew carbon. The money from those taxes could finance a green energy sector where Americans dying from despair could have a life of meaning again. We need vast multi-generational jobs programs to install solar panels, wind turbines, and a new grid for a fleet of electric cars. All right, scrap that last part. We need a clean energy mass transit system that reconnects isolated towns to the nation. That might be cool. We'd all need to join the fight to prevent sacred indigenous land from being ripped open by pipelines. Please, please, and thank you. Many obstacles stand in the way of this vision. Democrats and Republicans are too aligned with wealthy donors and corporate interests to truly champion the anti-capitalist measures that would be necessary to realize it. But Republicans are currently standing in the way of even the most incremental measures that the federal government can take against climate change. This is all I'm going to read of this article. I'm going to link it below because I'm running out of time. But this is good stuff. It's almost done. There's just a few more paragraphs to this, but you guys get the gist. Republicans and Democrats are to blame. I know that there's some progressive Democrats that have gotten into office and who are speaking more forcefully about climate change, but dang, those pesky corporate Democrats are just standing in the way. And we've got Nancy Pelosi as Speaker again of the House. Oh my God, nothing's going to happen. She needs to go. She needs to get gone. And all the other corporate Democrats need to get gone too. And we need a third party. We need one fast. We need a third party that is main platform is thwarting climate change and the disasters it will bring and everything else that follows after that. That's all I have for you tonight. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you would like to support the channel, you can do so at the links below. Until next time, peace.